there's always like an accusation of being like selective, right?
Yeah.
Of course we have to be selective. Like it's impossible to fight for everything. And I think you rather be selective and fight for something than stand for nothing at all. One is always better than zero. Try to look at the larger picture of situation of life itself. Like, does this really matter? Is this 10 minutes of argument to prove that you are right, or prove that your ego is better than the other, to prove that you're more intellectual and you're more in the right? Does it matter in the larger scheme of things? Does it matter by the end of the day? Does it matter by the end of the week? And does it matter to your life, to the month, to your career? And most 99% of the time, it really doesn't.
I would say maybe understand that how you and I view reality may not be the same way. And that's
Yeah.
And we can still live without disrespecting each other and understanding that the other opinion exists. That does not mean anyone needs to get hurt. One, I don't know how to talk to somebody whose entire opinion is based off their excuse for an algorithm. Right? Like read a book. If you read a book, or if you are somebody who I see that you are able to back your argument without something that sounds like, you've heard from your uncle or your father or whatever, or your mother or your aunt, whoever, then I would respect it. Right? Or then I would dignify it with a response. I'll always respect your opinion, but I will not dignify it with a response. So I think for me, it is to say that you need to understand that if you really want to talk about this, you should make me want to dignify this with a response. And that can only happen when you know what you're saying. So I think it is, my advice to the person would be to understand where their opinions are receptive and where they're not. And to understand that if their opinions are not going to be received well in a room, that is the room they should be in.
Yeah.
Right? If your opinion, if you really believe something, then defend it with all your heart.
Yeah.
And embrace it with all your heart, but don't hurt someone in the process. Or
Yeah.
don't think that you can attack someone in the process, because that doesn't make your opinion right. It makes does the opposite for it. So yeah, I think my advice would be that to understand that if your opinion is not going to be received somewhere, that's where you should be. Because if it is received in a room where everybody is saying, agreeing to it, you're just around a bunch of yes men. And I think you should always strive to be in the opposite place. Welcome to Breaking Point. Breaking Point is a new format that we have, we're testing out and we're trying, and we would like to really keep going with it on Stories with Shastri. So a breaking point is defined as a moment of stress where a person breaks down or the situation becomes critical. In the case of a podcast, it could refer to a conversation that gets critical once it reaches a breaking point. It could be about literature, media, politics, music, or anything else, or even your values or your beliefs. But that's where this conversation is different, because we usually stop when we reach our breaking point. We out here start with asking, what is your breaking point? Today we have Sai Sethu, who is a returning guest on Stories with Shastri, and Sai came on when we started out, and back then he had started something called On the Ground, where he went to different states of India and traveled, and I think now he's been traveling the world also with this agenda where he shares stories that help bring a smile to your face, to show you what is happening on the ground, to show you that there is some hope in this world still, and that there is some good, and there is something that people are doing for the betterment of society at all points. So since it's been I think it's been 5 years since we did this. So maybe I will let Sai tell us a little more about what he's been up to and how has life been since and what's going on with him right now.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be back in Stories with Shastri. That's what we're calling it even now, right?
It's Stories with Shastri, but this one I'm thinking like maybe I'll call it Breaking Point. Maybe I'll change the name somewhere in the middle. I don't know.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
not? Do your thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so good to reconnect once again. I think Sangamitra has been a part of my journey, even when it was not even a journey; it was just a beginning. And yes, so what I've been up to. I've been experimenting with storytelling. That's what I've been up to. I've been refinding myself and what I'm aligned towards in terms of values, in terms of the stories I like to tell. I've told like 400 stories across India, untold
Wow.
stories about India. So now I'm trying to realign myself a bit because I'm a little bored and I don't have the same passion that I have for what I did before. So I'm trying to find something that I'm really passionate about, so that I can really recalibrate and refuel myself at the same time. So right now it's a sort of an experimentation phase with respect to learning, with respect to creativity, a lot of uncertainty, but that's always going to be the case. So I've embraced it. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So I know it's not the theme, but I'm curious. What has led to feeling stagnant with what you're doing, or what you were doing, where you changed your
Yeah.
course?
I think I've just done this for a long time. I've met like lots of different humans, like a plethora of humans from the most diverse walks of life. And I feel like my learning has reduced in the process because the stories I tell I find a little bit repetitive, and I don't feel the same sense of novelty that I felt before. And I'm a person who's very driven by passion and who really needs to find interest in whatever he does. So it died down a bit, and also the format of storytelling has been the same for the like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
So the viewing patterns are changing, audiences evolve, audiences watch differently, and so I'm trying to cope up with that at the same time. And also I feel I also have evolved in the process, so I want to do something of more impact, something that will challenge me more and push me more outside my comfort zone.
So I'm going to jump right in to the format. What is your breaking point? And for our viewers, I usually what happens in Stories with Shastri is that there's a theme that we work with, or we both parties are prepared. But here I specifically asked Sai to not tell me this because I would like to go into this blind. So Sai, please tell us, what is your breaking point?
My breaking point. Interesting. So I think I have different points of breaking in different aspects of life. For example, to start off with the apex predator over here, I think it's politics.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think even you can relate with that. So any injustice going on in the world, where any kind of occupation or any kind of colonialism or any kind of suppression based on race, religion, or color or caste really riles me up. And I think, and usually politics is the biggest breaking point because you're not the person in power. I'm just another civilian and citizen of the world, of my country. So I literally have almost very less power to create change or have an impact or fix whatever I find as a problem in the world and the society. So that helplessness, coupled with the fact that the people who are the most evil get away with doing whatever they want to people who don't have a voice, to the marginalized. So I think that helplessness, coupled with the fact that the world is so unjust and unequal, is my biggest breaking point, I'd say. Like wars, the genocide happening in Palestine, and the United States being the most imperialist nation in the world. So I can't do anything about this. So that leads me to a definite breaking point, and I end up revisiting what I'm consuming on social media and try to do a social media audit so that I can have a balance as to what I'm consuming and not get so triggered by what's happening in the world.
Right. I'm just going to take some notes so that I don't forget, because there were certain things that you mentioned. For example, I found very interesting that you said that you're just a citizen of the world and there's not a lot of power there. But don't you think that a drop makes the ocean?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I would do everything I can in my capacity. I'll debate with people. I'll post it on my stories. But and yeah, it does. It does have a butterfly effect if I do it very often and stuff, right? But somehow at sometimes you don't feel the larger purpose as the drop. You don't see the ocean at all. It feels like it is just infinite levels of just injustice. You hardly see a ray of light. Even if it comes in a very scattered way. And I often don't think like the injustice in the world is ever been met with equal amounts of justice. It's very unequal in my experience. Like, so I feel like it's difficult to see the ocean sometimes, so you just forget that.
That it exists.
You just forget that it exists because there's not enough proof that it even exists sometimes. That's the kind of world we live in. And so it's very hard for me to believe in and have. I do have hope is always something that we all have. And but how much does hope bring us? I don't know.
I get that. I get that. But even in terms of talking to people, or even engaging in civil discourse or any of that, I personally, my opinion is one. I will never share my political opinion with anyone on any platform. You may have an idea of what my political opinion is, right? But
I do. Yeah.
yeah, but so the thing is, even with that, it's like, for example, somebody once told me, "Oh, you're an extreme leftist," and I was like, "I'm nothing." Like, sure, you're presuming that, because if you give me an opinion, I will always ask you the opposite question to see how well you can defend your opinion.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
that is what discourse is about. That is what dialogue is about. Because I want to understand what makes you believe this so much that you want to talk about it. So I told that person, I was like, it's not my fault if all your ideologies are extreme right.
Exactly. And also, like, I hate when people, I find it very amateur and very politically not evolved if a person labels you as extreme left or extreme right, because it's so nuanced. Yes, maybe if you say like we're leaning more towards the left is a better way to say it. Like extreme left, just because we disagree with you.
Yeah, but I also think that my political opinion or your political opinion, let's say it's opposite, right? For the sake of this
Yeah.
argument. I don't think it should matter. I think it should be our ability to still engage in conversation that is actually where either you learn something from it or I learn something from it.
Yeah.
But then in order for that to happen, one must be receptive to that, to saying that, oh, the other person may have something valuable to say. Like I have this friend, we were in school together, and lovely guy, and he and I don't agree on a lot of things, right? That's not to say that I'm not saying that he's right leaning or I'm center leaning or I'm left leaning, none of that. But even though we vehemently disagree on certain aspects of different things, of like, let's say, uh, how a certain law is passed, for example. Now, this person's a lawyer also. So, I don't know if it's privilege or what, but we are able to engage in discourse. Not because we think that the other person's opinions are right, but simply because we respect each other's opinions enough. We know that this person is not going to get personal, is not going to, think that they're capable of understanding where I'm coming from, or at least they're capable of receiving another perspective.
Yeah, that's very rare though.
It is. I mean, I hold that conversation that I have with that person as my benchmark for any political discourse, because I've
Nice.
seen cases where even with myself where I'm just like, no, I can't. I'm not going to accept this, right?
Yeah.
So, coming to that, why is politics a breaking point?
Um, because maybe Maybe because I care about the world so much. Maybe because I care about people. I think the planet Earth is a wonderful place. I think humanity is a very fascinating and amazing thing. So and it's just human. I think just human compassion, human empathy. The way we are wired as beings is to care for each other, to support each other. So just fundamentally, if something happens to someone else in your species, I think it tends to trigger some emotions within you. I think that's very natural, and when that's been abused over and over again, since I care so much about humanity, and which is what I've been doing for a living, is telling stories about different humans. So I think for me, I'm more like neck deep into the world of humanity and anthropology because I experience it at such a cellular level on an everyday basis. So I end up getting more affected, or I wouldn't say more affected, but yeah, just affected as anybody else who cares. Just like you, like I know
Yeah.
you can also. You're also a very compassionate person. You also care about a lot of issues in the world. So I think, yeah, just like that.
But do you think that has something to do with politics, or is that a political dilemma, or is that like a moral, ethical, and philosophical dilemma?
I think politics does have all of these subsets, right? It is
Yeah.
ethical. It has a lot of morality involved. It needs to have a lot of morality involved. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot. The pillars of it is ethics and justice and morality and honor and equality and egalitarian society. So all of that are supposed to be the pillars of politics, and they're all subsets. So if one of those levers are not exercised properly, I think in the larger picture, politics is not doing its job. So yeah, that does end up having an effect on me. Yeah.
I get that. There was this at this one point. I remember there's a certain whataboutery that comes about, right? When you speak up about something, and so there will always be that one person who'll be like, "Oh, what about this?" So
Mm.
earlier, I used to find this need to justify myself, where I used to say that, oh, considering that there's so many issues in the world that need my attention, I wake up one morning, I will pick what is my issue of the day, like how I do song of the day. I will be that day, that is the issue I will talk about. It doesn't mean that I don't care about the other issues, but that day, that is my prime issue of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and now, when someone says, "Oh, what about so and so?" My response is, "You're here to talk about it, too. You also have
Mm.
a voice. Please use it." Instead of questioning why I'm not talking about something, right? So, do you think that there is this need where people think that you must have an opinion on everything?
No, I don't think people must have an opinion on everything. Like that is very hard to do, and that's very exhausting. Even full-time activists don't have an opinion on everything.
Yeah.
Like even Greta Thunberg doesn't have an opinion on everything. She fights for a certain cause, and she stands up for a certain number of causes. It's never like every single thing in the world. I think that's impossible, and that's unrealistic to have. An expectation to have from any individual. Like for example, in India, when we're always like, oh, why don't the celebs talk about this and talk about that? Yes, but yes, certain celebs are voiceless completely, but there are certain celebs who are already standing for so many things, and that must be appreciated. And everybody can't stand for everything. Like, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of waterbury about like, okay, if you talk about this, there's always like an accusation of being like selective, right?
Yeah.
Of course, we have to be selective. Like, it's impossible to fight for everything, and I think you rather be selective and fight for something than stand for nothing at all. One is always better than zero. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's great. What about the imbalance, right? That you said that, oh, I don't see, like, there's no, the ratio between justice to injustice is very imbalanced. So, what about that makes you tick?
What about that makes me
What about it
get
makes,
triggered?
yeah, what makes you tick about it? Like, what changes how you look at it?
I think it comes along with denial, the fact that oh damn, how can this happen? Like, this cannot be true, and this must be dystopic and all of that. But then you start really understanding how the world really works, like at least the majority of the world, or if I have to be more narrowed down, or what the world is being portrayed on the media. At least the world as we know that we consume operates in a very hierarchical, imperialistic, colonial, and based on a certain formula and structure of hierarchy, like if that makes sense. So I think what I'm trying to say is the world is designed in a way that there will be injustice. Like that is the fabric of every society we live in, no matter which country. And the world is designed to have divisibilities. The world is designed to be fractured. And we as a society have evolved ourselves to have labels that will cause these problems and create a lot of injustice. So circling back to the point is, after denying the fact that these things are happening and there's so much injustice, you understand the nuances of how really the world works, how a fabric of a society is being built, and then you just accept that this is probably how it's going to be. There's always going to be injustice. It's just how humans are. It's just how the world is. So I think, and what breaks is the fact that you can't do anything about it. Like, and the fact that this is always going to be the case. Like, we have a Palestinian cause now, but there's always been a cause like that. There's always going to be a country like that. There's always going to be a community like that being subjected to harassment and abuse and murder and shame. So it's always going to exist in the world. So the fact that you're never going to solve it, and it's probably just getting worse by the day, is definitely a breaking point. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with the perspective that it seems to be getting worse by the day because of. But then I also question: is it because more of it is getting reported now?
Yeah, correct.
Like,
you're right.
This is like 40 years ago. Was it getting reported then? Because.
And also, social media has made it so much more democratic.
Has it?
Yes, I think so.
It depends on the platform.
Depends on the platform, yes. But at least in the overall world of media, there is enough number of voices and evidence to prove that a certain cause is wrong or right. Like the same thing, Palestine, everybody's actually, civilians are taking their mobile phones and reporting it from the ground, and visuals do not tell lies. So that kind of democracy was not at all available before the world of social media. The United States would go enter in a country and invade it, and we always think that they are the heroes. Right? Yeah. Until recently, when it's been an entire life, and the last 40 years, it's always been their fault, right? Yeah. So I think that shift in narrative has happened only because of social media. And yes, it depends on what you're consuming and how your algorithm is programmed. But at least there is enough representation and there's enough evidence. This is the most documented genocide has ever happened, or an attack on a human society, if I may say it. So it's more democratic that way, and it's becoming increasingly like that. You cannot hide from just a few people reporting what is happening, just a few news organizations telling you what is happening. It's more deeper than that, and it's more real than that. So I do think it's more democratic.
I get that. But then I also, then I question the questions I have when I look at this, right? Why it is happening? Why does it have to come to a point where citizen journalism is something that we're relying on, right?
Yeah.
Are our news outlets not reliable enough? Or it's also, when you said visuals don't lie, the first thing in my head that came is, they do lie if it's deep fake, right? So I understand that, but when I say I don't know if all platforms are democratic, I mean that, like Facebook, for example, right? They have their historical election censorship argument and the debate that was going on whether they censor political opinions or political agendas or whether they don't, where the founder of Facebook decided to say that, oh, we can't hamper free speech. However, at the same time, they were taking down reports of other countries where it was not working in the favor. So it's a very interesting scale to balance. You mentioned that you're very careful about what you consume on social media. Is that something, what makes you do that? Because for me, uh, my feed is so curated. Like I remember my 15-year-old brother asking me, how's your algorithm normal? Right?
How's your?
Algorithm normal.
That's good.
Yeah, because I don't like, I at least on one of my accounts, which I use a lot, it's very clear, like, there's no there are very few opinion pieces that I will see. I will actually just see the news as it is. So
Yeah.
how are you careful about what you consume on social media? And
I just unfollow all the news organizations, number one, because I cannot take, especially with Palestine, it's too much for me. I reached a point of saturation. I just cannot. And it's really sad that even as a viewer, you cannot take it. We can't even imagine what's going on the ground. Like, how horror, like,
jarring. So,
right?
Yeah, it's very jarring. It's really scary.
It's really scary. So I followed unfollowed news pages a lot because it's either this or they just report garbage or they just talk about like Kareena Kapoor getting out of the gym, like stuff like that. So it adds no value. News is what I've realized. So I started following pages that is creatively inducing, inspiring for me, and at least like it triggers me in different ways, like creatively and in a good way, and it hones my schools of thought, and I learn different things about the world from different people. So I think I've curated it like that, and I have two separate profiles: a creator profile and a personal profile. You know that. So, so my creator profile is fully just creators that I love to follow, that I take inspiration from, and that I learn about the world. Whereas I follow just like only 300-400 people, and my personal profile is just my friends, and even amongst my friends, I do not follow people that I don't know very well, and that I genuinely want to keep tab of my life, and vice versa. So I've tried to do that as well a lot. But even then, like sometimes, even if I watch one video, right, you know how it is, right, and then it keeps coming back. So you have to be very careful. It's easy to get down into the rabbit hole, but you have to be very conscious. And I can't even imagine if we, us being so conscious about what's happening or like that. Can you imagine, like for teenagers?
Yeah, it's not regulated well at all. At all. It's really that I feel like I need a whole different episode talking about the regulation of digital platforms, specifically like ChatGPT and teenagers. I get pissed off. But no, I understand that. Like I do that too. I have one that I call the public profile and one's the private profile. You know that, and it's a very on my private one, you will not see me talking about what's happening in the news, or you will not see me do any of that because I'm just relaxing. Like I used to call it my version of screaming into the pillow. It was my social media version of just like shit posting or all of that. But I understand that, but what about independent journalists if you're unfollowing news outlets? Because
I do follow independent journalists, yes. That I would consider as journalists, like the ones in different countries who are standing up for causes and doing it by themselves, in just using their own platform to build their own audience. I do follow certain independent journalists, yes.
Yeah, because I think I'm really concerned when people. I'm not just you. I'm talking about in general and say, oh, I don't follow the news anymore. Like I get my news from varied sources. Like I very rarely watch the news anymore. It used to be my favorite breakfast activity, where every morning I would sit and I would watch the news while eating my breakfast. And but with time I've seen it change. So how I pick my news is very different. Like randomly I listen to the news, right? When you have like the Google News is a very lovely platform. But yeah, I understand that. So, is there a room where coming back? Is there a room in where politics or conversations about politics is off limits for you?
Is often, huh?
Is off limits? Is there any room in your life like that?
Yeah, like my family, most of my family are against my political leaning, or meaning they think a different way, leaning towards a different direction. So we do end up having a lot of arguments, at least in the last few years. In the last 1 year, it's reduced significantly. We hardly have it because we've realized that it does more harm than good to our relationship. So we've just steered clear away from that. But I get triggered very easily, honestly. So it's tough to talk to me than the other way around. So I have to regulate my emotions, and when it gets very deep, I get very triggered. So it is more of a me problem. Coming back to your question, do I have any room that is off limits? I wouldn't say everything is off limits, but when people are just not seeing what's happening, and choosing to see not what's happening, and just taking a side for the sake of some social constructs like religion is just stupid and dumb for me. So it's so for me, having a conversation right now with some certain people about politics is off limits entirely. I don't even want to talk to you about politics because it's impossible to have a constructive conversation with you, and you are beyond correction. And your idea, and politics is not just politics. Yeah. It's not just politicians, it's everything. So I can see that mindset trickle down to so many other aspects of how they view things.
Like media or music even.
Yeah, everything. Even like, how a household should function, how a marriage should be,
Yeah.
what women and men have to play in society. Like
social hierarchies.
Yes.
Caste.
So, yeah, everything, right? So I'm just like, you are so much in that direction. I don't want to be like a warrior trying to bring you. Who am I to bring you to this? It's your problem. And it's going to, if anything, is going to you are going to not have the full life experience because of how limited your mindset is, right? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're not going to get what life has and the world has an offer for you if you're going to be so limited in your mindset. So that is not my problem. So circling back to what you asked me, like talking about politics to some people is totally off limits. I don't care, like, what you think.
But why is it off limits with them? Because aren't they the ones who need that conversation the most?
Yeah, but I cannot. I just feel like there's no use only to talk. They do. They are the ones who need the conversation most, and I've tried. And it ends up being like a relationship being sour, and it's just not worth it, number one. And number two, is not worth it for me also. I think like right now we've aged a bit, and the channeling of
is that why my back is hurting?
Exactly. Where we channel our energy is very important. Right? And so I choose not to channel it there. Like, I'd rather put out a video and change thousands of people's mindset than argue with one person who is never going to change.
I get that. And up until what point are you okay when it comes to someone playing the devil's advocate? When it comes to this, right? Like, if let's say there's an opinion you don't agree with, or there's a certain thing that you don't agree with, up until what time are you okay with somebody questioning the opposite? I mean, questioning how you look at the opposite.
Like, when people are so blinded by just one aspect, that is religion, or that is race. When you're trying to justify everything based on a certain religion or certain race, and you're trying to generalize and stereotype too much, then that really triggers me. Like, so if that keeps happening over and over again in an argument, I'm just like, there's no point. Like, and when you're denying things blatantly, like, it's so obvious when someone is at fault, And
Yeah.
it's not that I have to support a certain cause because I'm going to gain anything from it. I'm just supporting someone because they are in the right. Or and so when I feel like a certain argument is based on social constructs, or if their arguments never take into account all perspectives,
Yeah.
and you just blindly just want to keep pining down on what you believe, and you want to deny facts and figures and stats and history. I've heard people say like we should not take history seriously, like, you know, literally, why would you take history? I'm just like, then what is the point of talking to you?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, then there's no point of even having this argument. So I'm exiting, mentally checking out from this vicinity.
When you said that, while you were saying it, I was thinking about situations where I've been in a similar situation where I want to protect my relationship with that family member or whatever, and we strictly, like at this point, we strictly don't talk about it, right?
Who?
I can't say who, but it's a family member, and I'm very close to this person, and I'm very fond of this person, and I want them in my life.
Exactly.
Right. But I know that fundamentally I don't agree with you. It's not about political leaning, because political disagreements don't need to lead to an argument, they can lead to debate, right? So, and at least that's my view of it, where I will disagree with you only on a moral or ethical level, right? If it's a political argument, I will debate with you on it and try to see where you're coming from and why you believe that. But yeah, I think it's as like, when you're saying you mentally check out, there are some people where I'm just like, no, I'm not doing this. I will give them some nice facts because, I have this little urge in me being like, I'll educate you. I'll tell you what it is. You see it, like it's like you see, my job is to show you everything on the table. I'm not going to tell you what to pick. Right? It's not my place. I can't do your thinking for you. So when it comes to mentally checking out, I see that a lot of people I know have the same opinion, and I have a very similar opinion in some cases where I'll be like, oh, there's no point of having this conversation further. Right? So what do you think is the reason that so many people think that, oh, okay, this I need to mentally check out of this conversation when it comes to politics?
Because it affects your relationship. Number one, I think that's the elephant in the room, and also like it affects other relationships, because that could happen too in a society like India, where the family dynamic is very close knit.
Yeah.
It doesn't end with you; it affects other people as well. And no, I've never experienced that, but I'm sure that could be a reason. Number three is, I would also say, like, it affects your mood as well, right? Yeah, and you'd rather be doing something that brings you more solace, and yeah, I think these could be the reasons, I would say.
Okay, I can get behind that. It's but the reason I question it, right, is because I think that if everybody gives up on talking about why this is necessary to talk about, there will be nobody who will talk about it at some point. Where we be like, oh, there's no point anyway, and you walk off. But then that takes away from the loop of trying to see the other opinion. Like, how do you know how can you know and appreciate justice if there is no injustice? And how can you talk and acknowledge talk about and acknowledge the need for justice if you don't acknowledge the existence of injustice?
Yeah.
So tell me about this. When it comes to the justice versus injustice conversation, what is the best and the worst argument you have heard so far? Either it could come from you or it could be from someone you've spoken to.
With respect to a certain topic?
It could be any topic, but just where the common theme between these topics is justice versus injustice when it comes to political ideology.
Well, okay, justice versus injustice. And what is the most?
What is the best argument you have heard on this? And
Best
what is the worst?
argument.
You can start with the worst and then go to the best.
I think The worst would be something like for us to live a certain way. Like, they say like every society needs some people who are underprivileged, some people who are marginalized, for some people to have the upper hand, like, have the privileges. And so that is the worst. Like, we need to be like people having houses and having people work for us. That means there needs to be people in the lower caste, because that is their job. Like, you are born into a certain caste because you are meant to clean toilets. And I am born in this caste because I am meant to have a business and boss around people. So that entitlement is the worst I've heard. And what is the best I've heard is, I think, I don't know if anybody of any kind trying to give a voice to people who don't have a voice, or talk for people who don't have a voice. Any argument of anything of that kind would be a best argument. I'm not able to say one singular argument is better than the other, but any argument for a good cause, and that is always a good argument, I'd say. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not able to pick and choose.
I get that. My worst was it was actually something with Palestine. I don't want to get into what it was, but it really riled me up. And this person said, "Oh, this should happen. Like, so and so deserves this. The Palestinians deserves this." And I was like,
"Yeah, nobody deserves it. Except women deserve to be raped when they wear certain kind of clothes. How many we've heard that so commonly, like even in social media chatter, like she deserves that because she wore that particular T-shirt. That's obnoxious to a level that is unimaginable."
Yeah, and or the worst I've heard is when it comes to caste. I remember somebody telling me about how because of reservation, they are not getting the opportunities that they need, because this person who was talking to me is a Brahmin. And they were like, "Oh, but I'm a Brahmin, but I'm still not getting it." I mean, my arguments in my head, I had 3 arguments to it. The first being that there's actually a story in the Puranas which talks about why Brahmins will not be wealthy or will not be able to hold on to wealth. Right? So, or, because this was a person talking about employment. Eventually saying, "Oh, there's reservation, it's all unfair," or whatever. And my second argument to that was that if you want to be given the privileges of a Brahmin, practice like one, right? Steer clear from meat, steer clear from alcohol. You don't do any of that. You don't even do puja, so what are you doing? So
you just want the label.
You want the privileges, but you don't want the work behind it. There is in order to get the privileges because there's this ideology that I'm of a certain stature even today. I understand why it was like that, where Brahmins are always considered to be of a certain stature. But then it was a very interesting take, because I was watching this person and I'm like, you want all the privileges, but you've not done any work for it. I've not seen you do any work. And my third was, can you just get off your ass and go look for a job?
Exactly.
Right? Like, it's not that I'm not to say that finding a job is easy, but at least try. You're just sitting and you're just not actually searching. Right? So, but the best argument when it comes to, not just justice versus injustice that I've heard, but it's something that's changed my opinion on my ego, right, or where I think I stand when it comes to a conversation with someone, is that they say that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Like, it's my favorite line, and I stick to it. Like, there's an active effort to not be the smartest person in my room.
Yeah,
I'm like, I want to leave. right? This is
I've
not.
consciously been doing that too. Because sometimes when someone is way smarter than you, initially I used to be like, shit, this is not a good thing. But now I'm trying to consciously be like, that's actually a very good thing. You should be
Yeah.
with people who are more talented and smarter than you. That's how you grow, you know?
Yeah, and or you be like, please teach me, or like, show me what is something you do and why you do it the way you do it. So,
Yeah. Instead of getting intimidated, you should use it as, um, something that you
yeah.
could benefit from.
Or envious or jealous, right? Or
Yes.
like
Yes.
you're like, oh, why is he smarter? Like, yeah, good for you. I mean, there's enough for everybody to share. Uh, do you think that when it comes to this, right, when you go like, oh, somebody knows a little more about me in politics, for example, coming back to this, or somebody does, or I know more than someone else, but I know better, right? That the thought that you have that, oh, but I know better, so I can lead this conversation. Do you think that makes you a little closed off to further discussion on the subject?
Do you think that?
Makes you closed off to certain, like this further discussion on the subject?
Yeah, it does. Sometimes when I told you that I'm mentally check out, I'm just like, I'm better than you for having this conversation with you. You
Yeah.
know, it's okay. Sometimes you can take the high road when you know for a fact that you are on the high road. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think you don't have to always play the humility card or be humble and have a dialogue or a discourse for the sake of doing it. Sometimes if you can see what's happening here and if you can see a clear highway that you are on, there's nothing wrong with it. And you got on that highway for a reason and through your own journey, and that needs to be appreciated.
I get that. But is there a difference between saying that, oh, I'm taking the high road versus saying, oh, I'm better than you to be having this conversation?
More than better than you, it's just like it's not worth it. Like
Yeah.
I would say that more than better than you. Like I think saying more than better than you again kills the whole process of a whole point of your cause, where you're trying to fight for some kind of equality for the people who don't have. So I think that kills the purpose. But yeah, it's more about. I feel like more than being entitled, it's more like it's just not worth it. Like, we're seeing things differently, and it's not worth having this conversation because you're never going to change. You don't have the open mind to look the other way. Like, it's more about acknowledging that than a sense of entitlement, saying that I am more intellectually better than you, or I have more acumen, political acumen. Yeah.
Right, but I'm glad you said that you're talking about that you're not going to change or you won't see my perspective. But so to clarify my question further, it is: do you think that the other person is not capable of opening up or changing their perspective at any point? Does that close you off from talking to them, and why?
Yeah, at least my measurement of the fact that it's never going to happen in the near future. So that maybe it can happen. Like, who's to say when a person changes? Like, you never know what kind of
One can hope.
circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm be very happy if it happens, but I'm not going to fight that cause for you.
Yeah, I get that. What is okay? I do. I mean, I do understand what your answer might be about it, but I'm still going to ask this for the sake of this format. Is what is holding you back from accepting the opposite perspective, even if you acknowledge it?
What is holding you back from accepting the opposite perspective, even if
you acknowledge it, you acknowledge that opposite perspective exists. But what is holding you back
think
from accepting?
I don't agree with it. Like, and I have substantial evidence of history, of facts to prove that your argument is wrong and blatantly wrong. So I don't agree with it. And in the world where we judge if a certain perspective is right or not based on evidence, it doesn't stand the cause. So why should I agree with it? That's it. So I'd rather hold back and exit from that than proceed further when you're not willing to look into what the truth is and see things for what it's meant to be seen.
it's this thing I tell people about. It's also something I learned a little bit here and there with my mum and through my half a semester of media studies. But at mass comm is when you're reading the news, you have to always ask, what's the source?
Yeah.
Right? Who is the source of your news and where is it coming from? But I think now, and then is it reported only by this one outlet or multiple outlets that are also reliable enough, right? But now I think the question is also, the question has also evolved to who's paying for the news, right?
Yeah.
Because, and the reason I bring up news here is because a lot of our political ideology, specifically in the country we are in right now, is something that has been heavily influenced by the news cycle, right? If not influenced, at least the news cycle is trying to influence it.
Yeah.
Right. And whether actively or passively, I would like to believe that it's not an active effort, even though I know I am quite wrong on that, in that sense. But it's always this question of who's paying for your news, right? Where is it coming from? And
True.
And yeah,
who's saying it? Even that matters a lot nowadays.
Who is saying it, or why are they saying it? Because, like, for example, there was this way my mom taught me. So my mom was a journalist, as you know, and she had taught me about how do you see bias in news, right? Like two papers, I'm not going to name them, but two papers. It's the same piece of news, right? And one paper says that, oh, a man hit another man, right? And the other paper says, oh, so-and-so man of so-and-so religion hits other man. Right. So that's where bias creeps in. Right. It's right in the title of the news. It's right in the headline. So are you actually reporting the news, or are you propagating bias? So and coming back to a conversation, it's always this question that one has that, oh, am I engaging you in discourse, or am I propagating my bias to you? Right, or am I passing it on? Because I think over time I realized that I internalized a lot of it. So do you see conversations around politics, right, and healthy conversations around, and dialogue and debates around politics? And I want to differentiate between a debate and an argument here, but healthy conversations evolving.
No, I think we're moving more and more to our own extremes, I would say. Like, people are way more on the edge these days. And I think there's hardly space for debate, healthy debate of any kind. That doesn't exist also because the mainstream media in India propagates that idea that if you have to have opposite ideologies, you have to yell and scream at each other, which is ridiculous. So that has been happening for a decade now. So I think it's only bound to enter into the rooms of individual homes. And I think there's hardly, at least in the public discourse, I don't see much platforms where healthy debates are being facilitated, especially with respect to politics. Maybe in other topics, yes, a lot. Not with respect to politics so much, I'd say.
Yeah, there was this, I think it was a quote somewhere that said that if you need to raise your voice to make a point, maybe it's not the right one.
Yeah, exactly.
And this brings me to my last question. If you were to talk to somebody who, when you're reaching your breaking point, not about politics, what is an advice you would give them so that this gets a little easier for both parties?
Try to look at the larger picture of situation of life itself. Like, does this really matter? Is this 10 minutes of argument to prove that you are right, or prove that your ego is better than the other, to prove that you're more intellectual and you're more in the right? Does it matter in the larger scheme of things? Does it matter by the end of the day? Does it matter by the end of the week? And does it matter to your life, to the month, to your career? And most 99% of the time, it really doesn't. So that makes it very powerless, and it will probably help you diffuse the situation and get out of it. And yeah. immediately transport you into a better mood when you realize that was just not worth it. Even if you win that argument, in the larger scheme of things, it doesn't matter. And you're just two people in this wide world having a dumb argument. So it doesn't matter in the larger scheme of things.
Yeah, I get that. I have that question. So what is the point of this if we're all going to die anyway? So it is the
What do you do?
Pardon?
Oh, in this situation, what do you do?
What advice do I give them?
Yeah, what advice would you give them for people to, diffuse themselves out of that? Or
I think I would say maybe understand that how you and I view reality may not be the same way, and that's
yeah,
okay. And we can still live without disrespecting each other and understanding that the other opinion exists. That does not mean anyone needs to get hurt. One, I don't know how to talk to somebody whose entire opinion is based off their excuse for an algorithm. Right? Like read a book. If you read a book, or if you are somebody who I see that you are able to back your argument without something that sounds like, you've heard from your uncle or your father or whatever, or your mother or your aunt, whoever, then I would respect it. Right? Or then I would dignify it with a response. I'll always respect your opinion, but I will not dignify it with a response. So I think for me, it is to say that you need to understand that if you really want to talk about this, you should make me want to dignify this with a response. And that can only happen when you know what you're saying. So I think it is, my advice to the person would be to understand where their opinions are receptive and where they're not. And to understand that if their opinions are not going to be received well in a room, that is the room they should be in.
Yeah.
Right? If you really believe something, then defend it with all your heart.
Yeah.
And embrace it with all your heart, but don't hurt someone in the process. Or don't think that you can attack someone in the process, because that doesn't make your opinion right. It does the opposite for it. So yeah, I think my advice would be that to understand that if your opinion is not going to be received somewhere, that's where you should be. Because if it is received in a room where everybody is saying, agreeing to it, you're just around a bunch of yes men. And I think you should always strive to be in the opposite place.
Yeah. Very tough though. Easier said than done.
Yeah, that's true. That brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you for being a part of this and sharing your breaking points with us.
Of course.
I'm very, very happy that you made it and that you were willing to talk about this, because like I said earlier, a lot of people I asked, or I told her, who I got in touch with saying, hey, you want to come back on the pod? Most of them did not pick this, and you were one of the first who was game. And I really love that about you, that you were someone who is open to experimenting and open to exploring and seeing new perspectives. And I hope you find people like that around you.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me and approaching me and wanting to have me back.
Always. Always.